how do we fight what you call Chinese imperialism? What I might call Chinese Communist Party imperialism.
Right, yeah. It's a very long and arduous process. It's persisted for thousands of years, and I don't see the Chinese Communist Party admitting to imperialism anytime soon. And it takes the recognition of the, like you guys said just now, the many intricacies and complexities and diversities within the Chinese culture, and not just homogenize everything into one single solid identity and expect that the entire nation has one opinion. Because it's worse enough, it's already bad enough that the Chinese Communist Party is doing this to their own people, forcing them to have one opinion. It's even worse when the wider world as well is basically categorizing the entirety of a very large and diverse culture into one thing, and basically assuming that the entire entity has the same political opinion. It only leaves the people that want to speak up with less choices, and it's forcing them into a more of a bubble. So I think we need more criticism, definitely, and we need to show. One thing which is really fake as well, but we need to show by sanctions and mainly sanctions. I feel that the Chinese Communist Party is not invulnerable. If you're a minority, if you are an interest group, if you're a stakeholder in China, or you're a stakeholder in the outlying parts of China, the sovereign outlying parts of China, like East Turkestan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Tibet, if you're in these areas that are being active surveillance and oppression of the Chinese Communist Party, the free world needs to show these oppressed communities that the Chinese Communist Party is not invulnerable, and it does have its weak moments. And if we all just band it together, there is a chance of toppling this wanted rule. So this is a really grand dream, and it does sound like I'm talking about a fairy tale now. But this sort of sentiment, right? This is something that the Chinese Communist Party is doing very well. They're crafting this fairy tale of a glorious new Chinese empire being built in the East and expanding its wings into the West, right? And this sort of stuff have captured the popular imagination. And even it sounds insane on paper and spoken out loud, it does have an effect. And there's no sort of popular imagination in what kind of world we could build without reliance on China. And that lack of imagination, where in a world where we can stop relying on China, is what we're fighting against. It's an ideological war. It's a war inside our heads right now.
So you're saying we need to kind of build that idea, like what would it mean to not support the Chinese Communist Party's oppression of other people?
What would decoupling look like?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely we'll definitely need more dissent, like with great channels like yours and with many other medias. We'll continue building dissent. That's for sure. And on a government level, it means more sanctions, and it means targeted sanctions as well. Like the Magnitsky Act itself, it's a very good bill to put forward. But on top of that, there needs to be more wide scale, in where the first thing we do is to come from a place of power. Like the sanctions, if we continue to trade to China on one hand, and then on the other hand we sanction with them, or in one hand we do a sort of trades and interest, and then on the other hand we say that we're going to sanction on certain products. If this reliance continues and our industry is still depleting and still going away, and for that I mean the free world. If the free world is still exporting and losing most of the industry and bargaining power, our sanctions won't mean anything to China very soon, because they can sustain their own. They can sustain themselves, and they can build the things that they need, because they already have built a wartime economy, and by that it means they are now almost at a point of self-sufficiency. And when that happens, sanctions won't mean anything. So, in order for us to make our sanctions mean something, to make our words mean something, the free world must rebuild its own economy, I feel, before anything else, so that we come from a place of power, and then we can tell China that our trade does have an impact on your economy, despite what you like to think.
Yeah, we're in a very dangerous situation right now. Most of the U.S. medical equipment and medicine is made in China. What if one day China decides to sanction the U.S. and stop sending that stuff to us? We don't have the infrastructure to build it.
The U.S. is actually in an okay position, but like countries like Canada, Canada's having terrible trouble with the vaccine for coronavirus right now because they do not have the infrastructure to manufacture their own vaccine. So they can't vaccinate enough people. So like the U.S. is in a better position, but countries like Canada, Australia, like these like Western democracies that we need as allies to be able to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party, they rely a lot more on China than we do. So yeah, it's important to kind of like the Five Eyes shouldn't just be a security national security alliance, right? Like we should be an economic alliance. Go ahead.
Like the Five Hands.
That just sounds weird.
It does sound weird. But like working together, holding hands, or at least fist bumping because it's, COVID.
There you go. Elbow bumping.
Oh, like we would call it the Five Hands instead of the Five Eyes.
Because we're working together in partnership on a wide range of things besides just security.
Max, you were going to say something?
Sums it up. Yeah, Five Hands. Sure.
Five Hands sums it up. Okay.
Well, for sure, yes.
I mean, I do think that what you're saying, Max, about like now is the time to act is such an important point for people to understand because the Chinese Communist Party is actively building resilience to sanctions. Like they're actively trying to build a financial system where they don't have to be affected by sanctions. They don't have to rely on the US dollar. I mean, they're still years off from being able to build that fully, but they recognize what's happening and they're already starting. So
they are working towards the goal.
Oh yeah.
We are not.
Yeah, we do not believe that could ever happen, right? That, that they could build a secend financial system that doesn't rely on the dollar.
Most people don't know we're in a war with China.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We can, a lot of the times when we go into topics like this, does it mean like stop buying certain products from certain brands? Of course it does. But then most of the burden is then slanted off to the little guy and onto us normal civilian citizens. Stuff like this like tectonic movements like this have to be led by the government and the elected members of parliament. This cannot be done from a down to top level, or that only works when it's dissent and when it's opinion. And when we're trying to get certain opinions through. But when it comes to large scale acts like this, well, we can tell people to stop buying from Chinese Communist Party owned firms and factories. But then what alternative does that leave them? Nothing, right? And even if they wanted to support their local industries, maybe it's unaffordable, and maybe it's not the brand recognitions and the market isn't as the supply chains there aren't as sophisticated or aren't as matured as the as trading with China. That's just more convenient, just to buy things ready-made from China. Well, so it means on the policy level, there needs to be more sort of a top-down approach when it comes to bringing industry back. And there really is no bargaining on that. Call it a wartime economy, call it self-sufficiency, call it what we want. But in order to bargain at all, we need the bargaining chips. And it comes from the government. And we need to see them act now.